Well, Dan, that's very interesting. It certainly lends itself to longevity, at least in my opinion, when something's able to be absorbed, if you will, into existing infrastructure, into a legacy of doing that kind of work. And you can certainly bolster a business with that. So that's good background to know and understand.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cashing Out, brought to you each week by Hoban Law. I'm Dan Humiston, and I'm going to be here by myself today. I spoke to Dina earlier, and she's not going to be able to join us on today's call, unfortunately, but she'll be back next week. So I thought I'd take a minute to explain to our new listeners what this show is all about. Cashing Out is a weekly show that follows one cannabis entrepreneur's journey through the sale of their company. To start this off, we're selling my company, OG Ventures, which owns 50% of the Cannabis World Congress Business Expo. So every week we've had guests come on to ask me questions about the company, and we've really just discussed the whole process of selling a business. So in a few minutes, I'm going to get on the phone. We have 2 phone calls today, one with an investor and one with our lawyer. So that's basically the format of the show. And every week we get a little bit deeper into it until hopefully we have a successful sale, and we try to share as much information with the listeners as possible so that you know what it's like to sell a company in the cannabis business. All right, so let's get started. Let me get my first investor bull on the phone.
Hello, C. Hutton.
Hey, C, it's Dan Humiston.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Good to hear from you.
For your listeners, you will remember C.E. Hutton as the managing director of Legacy Partners 5280 Fund. C.E. was on our show. It was a little bit ago. See, I think you were episode 20, but we chatted for a while. So, C, it's great to have you back on the show.
Well, Dan, it's always good to hear from you. We had a great show, and as I told you before, I was looking forward to getting back with you and doing another one, and here we are.
And I said, I know you'll be back on, so we are back together. Well, you may hear some background music. You may hear some background noise. I'm actually in Boulder today. I'm in Boulder.
Oh, good old Boulder, Colorado, huh?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm in Boulder. My daughter, Logan, is a sophomore here, and she invited me to lunch today. So,
oh, nice. Yeah. Very nice.
So I'm winging it in Boulder, doing my first Boulder interview with C.E. Hutton. So everything's lining up great. So I'm just to tee this up for our listeners, because in case they haven't heard this, how we do this aspect of our show, Cashing Out, we're following one entrepreneur's journey, which happens to be me, one entrepreneur's journey through the sale of their cannabis company. And we have occasional investor bulls come on our show to talk to us or to talk to me, ask me questions, or somewhat put me on the hot seat like you would if you had a deal that you think, you know what, I want to learn a little bit more about this company.
Yes, understood.
And so I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and I'm going to follow your lead, however you normally do it when you get into that, what I'm going to call round 2 of a deal.
All righty. Well, Dan, thanks again. I had a chance to review the information that you had sent forward. OG Ventures LLC. I have to tell you, I love the name. Certainly gets an attention getter. It gets an attention, But so OG Ventures, so I'm looking at this 50% ownership of Leading Edge Expositions, and then Leading Edge owns 100% of Cannabis World Congress and Business Expositions, CWCB Expos. So getting into that kind of business, trade show ownership and those kind of pieces, can you just enlighten me, Dan, how those pieces came together between OG, Leading Edge, and also obviously delivering service to CWCB Expos?
Well, I'll give you the real condensed version. I had a lot of experience in the former industry running trade shows, and went to a show in Seattle that MJBulls put on and said, this is wide open. I need to do a trade show. And that was in 2013. Did a show in Las Vegas in 2014 and another one in New York in 2014. And out of the blue, I got approached by a big trade show company, H.A. Bruno, who has 40 years of experience in the trade show industry.
Mm.
And they wanted to get into the cannabis industry. They wanted to start a show. And long story short, we ended up selling 50% of the company to H.A. Bruno, the managing partner over there, Ralph Iannuzzi. Moved the whole operation from my offices in Buffalo to their offices in New Jersey. They have the infrastructure. They have the team. They were running a show called the Franchise Show, which they had, I don't know, shows all over the world where they did this franchise. And so just, built right into their already existing infrastructure. And that's how it started. And, that's how we ended up with 50% of it. They're the managing partners. As time went on, for the last 5 years, I've worked. This has been my full-time job, but as time went on, my roles got replaced as we brought in more and more key people. And little by little, I'm out of a job, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not an investor. So I need to, move on to the next venture, which is the MJBulls podcast.
Well, Dan, that's very interesting. It certainly lends itself to longevity, at least in my opinion, when something's able to be absorbed, if you will, into existing infrastructure, into a legacy of doing that kind of work. And you can certainly bolster a business with that. So that's good background to know and understand. I didn't know that much about that industry, but certainly a solid business decision in that respect. One of the things also I wanted to ask Dan is, we go to these kind of conferences and think, we're there, and a lot of people there putting on shows, but the cost element of those things is very interesting to me. And one of the things I noted from you was that barriers to entry are high. And I was interested from your expertise and what you've seen with the company, just a couple of what those barriers are and how that statement is being made.
Yeah. For the first thing, it's difficult to get key locations. Hotels are not hard, but we're in convention centers. And
Gotcha.
Especially for cannabis, it's tough to have the credibility to get into a convention center or a key location. That's your first barrier. The second barrier is most of your costs are up front. So you need the upfront cash to get it off the ground. Exhibitors tend to be slow pay. So you end up carrying a lot of your cost.
Gotcha.
Almost up to the day of the show.
Okay.
So that's really the second barrier to entry, and probably the biggest one is having enough cash to fund that float. Sure,
absolutely. So you're certainly funding the float. Dan, it's one of the other things. We know that the trade shows, particularly B2B, and I saw a comment around high growth, and they trade high. What's the life cycle that you have seen with these B2B trade shows and that continual growth cycle with these high multiples? 2, 5, 10 years? What's your take on that?
Well, my best experience was in my former industry that I was in, and that cycle really paralleled the industry that I was in. I was in the indoor tanning industry, and it really paralleled that.
Indoor tanning. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
So our trade shows really paralleled how the industry was doing. But as consolidation occurred, there was a period of time where our shows became very, very profitable. And then you could feel that it just started because, what used to represent 4 companies now turned into 1 company, and what used to represent maybe 10,000 or 10 booths now represented 5 booths. And so,
yes.
But we are eons away from that in this industry. I think what we're banking on is that mainstream businesses, once they feel confident to get into this industry, they need a soft landing place, someplace that they feel comfortable. I don't think the party scene in Las Vegas is exactly equipped for that group today. It will be someday, but today it's not.
Oh, yeah.
I think being in New York City, being in Los Angeles, more of a business, more of a kind of a little bit, I hate to use this expression, but button-up show than it would be a more relaxed party atmosphere is probably more conducive for that crowd that we're trying to get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with that comment. Well, certainly with those markets, big media markets, big high traffic, high attention markets, would you say that you've got a captive marketplace there in those 2 markets?
Yeah, the best part about those shows is that we don't have to draw people in from other
Yes.
from other areas. I mean, we can survive just in our driving radius, and thrive. I shouldn't say survive. We can thrive with just in the driving radius. I mean, those are within a 1 hour or 2 hour driving radius.
Sure.
It's probably
Absolutely.
a third of the population, or at least a quarter of the
You couldn't
population.
be in better markets. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable.
I
It's
know,
unbelievable.
and having the equity, this is our 6th year in New York and our 5th year in Los Angeles. So we have the equity of year after year. People, if they want to exhibit in New York City, we're the show. And Los Angeles, there are a few shows in California, but we're the show in the Los Angeles Convention Center. And so I just feel like we're really, the show is positioned great for the entrance of mainstream American businesses. I think particularly hemp, as hemp starts to become, I just feel like we're really well positioned for that. And, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. And again, I'm not the kind of person that likes to watch other people do their work. I like to be the person doing the work. And I have a lot of ideas, some with this podcast and some with others, but that I just really like to run with. And so it's time for me to move on. And that's the reason that I put this deck together. And
well, Dan, I think you spoke a little bit about it earlier, was the whole thing about anytime anybody does anything, it is truly about what's your why. And I know that you said in the beginning, listen, I've kind of done my time on Maple Drive, so to speak. MJBulls is your baby now. And I just, was there anything else with that, Dan? Just focus on MJBulls or any kind of life things that you want to do?
Well, I have 3 kids, and so it's nice to have a little time to spend with my kids. But really, I'm anxious to get this. I have a lot of ambitious ideas with the podcast that I want to pursue, and that's really where my energies are going to be focused for at least for the short term. But just stay tuned, because I can't tell you how many great ideas people like you have given me about the show and saying, Dan, why don't you run with this idea? Oh, we could do that. If I covered all the ideas, I need at least 3 more people doing shows with me. So it's going to be fun.
Dan, isn't it beautiful to have a clean slate to create whatever you want to create? That's a beautiful thing.
That's, what, CE, that's what I think about this industry. We all have an opportunity to write our own story. This is an industry that we have. It's a clean slate. And if you want to be in the podcast business, it's all green lights. The whole way down the road, it's green lights. All you have to do is just start driving. And if you want to be and you know this better than anyone. I mean, I want to make sure that I was going to bring this up at the beginning, but we'll bring it up in the close, is that, I mean, you have a unique niche that no one else has even taken a chance to do it. For those of you that didn't listen to CE's episode back at episode 20, he has a mandate in the Legacy Partners 5280 fund, which 5280, by the way, is for Mile High. That's how many feet mile in Denver is. But you have a mandate in your fund, which a portion of the money that you raise will be invested in minority-owned cannabis businesses. I think that needs to be shouted from the hills. And that's why.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much opportunity out there, and it's getting overlooked. And I think that,
absolutely.
And like I said, you have all green lights down your road too. You gotta do is just drive.
Absolutely, Dan. Whether it's, and particularly with us, and thanks for that note. I mean, literally, we see ourselves as, with our minority focused segment of that being a purveyor of dreams. And we certainly want to make those things happen because it's a niche in a marketplace that needs to be spoken to and spoken about. So we're very, very proud of that. So thank you for mentioning that again, Dan. Appreciate that. But like you said, it's creating from a slate, and beautiful gardens and beautiful things happen when you have a chance to create. So we're there.
Well, we're all having fun. I think that's the best part about this is we're in industry. It's fun. We're with people that are fun, and it's fun to succeed. And
absolutely,
so that's
absolutely.
Good. Well, I'm going to let you.
Dan, I congratulate you on your success with the business, and certainly more congratulations and best wishes to you on the new life. And this has really been interesting and insightful for me, and I really appreciate you allowing me to be a guest today and go through this with you.
Yeah, and I appreciate you doing it. And if there's any more information that you need, or you want to look at additional information, just let me know, and we will move on from there. But,
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I will, hopefully we'll have you on again very soon.
I certainly hope so, Dan. Have a great afternoon. I appreciate it.
Okay. Before we jump on our next call, let me just do a little bit of business and thank one of our sponsors, Blaze, which is a cannabis technology company. They make software for dispensaries and distributors. And soon they'll be launching a new software for cultivation and manufacturing. Chris Violas is the CEO over there. He was on the MJBulls podcast a few episodes ago. Good guy. So if you're a dispensary or distributor and you're looking for software, check out Blaze. It's blaze.me. Blaze.me. Okay, now let's get to our next guest.
Hey, Dan, what's going on?
Well, today, Larry, it's just you and me. Dina is not with us today, but one of the things that we are hearing from some of the people that are interested in buying is that they want me to not get involved in trade shows or conferences. And, you know, there's some things I'd like to do with the MJBulls podcast that could resemble a conference. It'd be more of an event type of things, and I'm just not sure where I should go with this. I don't know. So I wanted to hear from you, explain what the intent of a non-compete is, how we can carve it out in a way that I can still do stuff with the podcast and not be in violation of it.
Okay. Well, it's a very interesting topic, Dan, and the truth of the matter is it's one of the most important issues that anyone who is selling their business will face, but people tend to look past it. And that's for a very specific reason. We typically think of non-competes within the context of an employee who's been working for you and is now going to leave and they want to go work for a competitor. And you don't want that to happen. You've spent a lot of time teaching them, training them, introducing to your customers. And the last thing you do is you want them to go across town and sit down and start using all that knowledge and information to help someone else. What we've seen in the standard world is that non-competes are often not enforceable. But to really understand that, and I'll try not to get too technical here, what we're really talking about is something called a restrictive covenant. People use the term non-compete interchangeably with a lot of other things, and that's where the confusion comes in. But we have a restrictive covenant. There's three types. The first is the traditional non-compete that says, I won't go work for a competitor. The second one is a non-solicitation. I will not solicit your customers or your employees. And the third one is a confidentiality agreement. I will not disclose any confidential information I learn while working here. People tend to call all three of them non-compete, but they're really not. And this is why it's important. In the standard employee context, the non-compete itself is typically not enforceable. The court's not going to restrict someone from earning a living unless the employer can really show they were the top boss and had, knew all the secret formulas, and we can't let them go. Non-solicitations and confidentiality agreements will typically be enforced if certain standards are met. But it's that non-compete that really gets everybody thinking. And people say, I've heard of employees who leave and the non-compete and they go ahead and they do it anyway. But it's a little bit different when we're talking about the sale of a business. When people sell a business, the buyer will almost always ask for a non-compete. And the reason is because the buyer has just got done purchasing all of your goodwill that you have built up over the years. That's why they're buying your business and not just starting a new one necessarily. Your business has a reputation. It has a name. People know about it. When they hear about it, they're like, oh, right, that conference, that's the one we want to go to. So that's really what you're paying for. If the seller can sell you all of that and then 2 weeks later come back and say, hey, I'm starting my own brand new conference business. And people say, well, wait, we've always wanted to work with Dan. We don't know who this new guy is. And even though he bought the business, if Dan is coming back, we're going to stay with Dan. So the guy who bought the business says, hey, wait a second. I just paid you money for all this goodwill, and you immediately took it right back by opening up across the street from me. So when we have a non-compete that's given ancillary to the sale of a business as part of the sale of a business, courts will enforce those all day long. So if you are selling your business, you need to understand that means for some period of time after the sale, you will not be allowed to go back into that same business. unless the buyer says, yeah, go ahead, we don't care, which they usually don't. So I deal with people who are getting ready to sign the documents, and I always say to them, well, what are you going to do next? Well, I might, take a few months off, and then I think I'm going to go start up a new business. And I say to them, you can start a new business, but not in this area, not in this market, not that's going to compete with them. It has to be something completely different.
Well, it's a pretty big umbrella, trade show, conferences. That's a really big umbrella that could arguably be a lot of things that, are kind of in the gray area. So when we do this, we got to make sure that we carve out some of those or define some of those gray areas. Is that typical?
100%.
Okay.
That is in fact, you've hit the nail right on the head. What I will tell my clients when they are selling is, tell me what you want to do next, and let's see if we can figure out a way to carve out an exception to the non-compete to allow this type of activity. And, some purchasers will be flexible enough and say, yeah, sure, you can go ahead and do that. And sometimes they will even say to the people, I don't mind if you stay in the industry or associated with the industry because, you bring a very positive influence on the industry. And every time somebody hears your name, they're going to think of your business, which I now own. So I don't care if they come in and do the business because they think you own it. Hey, that's fine with me. As long as they're coming in and giving me business, that's the important thing. But you're absolutely right. You need to know, and you need to go in, and part of the negotiations, you want to carve out that little space that'll let you go do what you want to do next.
Okay. Well, we've been speaking with Larry Mishkin, who is from the Mishkin Law Group, and he's also of counsel with the Hoban Law Group, and they can handle any of your cannabis related or non-cannabis related issues. So Larry, thanks again for being the reoccurring legal expert on our show, and I probably will talk to you next week if you're around.
I am around, Dan. I will look forward to it. And once again, I thank you for the opportunity. It's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks. Okay, that's our show for today. I want to thank Jamie Humiston for composing the music for this show. All the original music was by Jamie Humiston. Also, if anybody has any questions, comments, criticisms, ideas, please email me at connect@mjbulls.com. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week.